is the Ridiculously Amazing Insurance Agent Podcast, hosted by me, Kelly Donahue Piro. This show is for growing insurance agencies looking to maximize their biggest investment, their people. Listen to the top agency performance partners clients share their story on how they boosted their performance by executing a plan. Let's head to the show. All right, Ridiculously Amazing Insurance Agent Podcast listeners, I am honored, blessed, excited, ecstatic. I woke up today. I actually took today off, but I decided I still needed to talk to this one person who's on my podcast. You may know her from the Power Women Insurance Podcast, the one, the only magical, mystical, total boss babe, badass, Teresa Kitchens. I feel like,
oh my goodness!
I know, like
the crowds are going wild.
It's like all of our podcast listeners are hitting the up volume, download, make sure they don't miss it right now. Well, that leaves, I'm just going to ask you a random first question and then let you introduce yourself. But if you were to get to pick a theme song to walk out to, what do you think your theme song would be? Like, have you ever thought about that?
Wow, what a question. You know what? I'm going to go with what's on one of my playlists right now because I just love it. And like, it's one of those songs that whenever I hear it, I like hit rewind constantly.
Yeah.
And there's two of them actually I'm thinking of, but one might not be appropriate for a podcast, but because it's a little funny, but anyway, probably my first one that comes into my mind, I think it's DJ Khaled, whatever. All I do is win.
Yes,
win,
I love that song.
Yes, it just has such good energy. And especially if you're walking into a room, to me, that's like you're running down an aisle and everybody's, it's just such good energy. The other one I probably shouldn't even mention, but we're among friends, is I'm a huge Elle King fan. And she has a great song called I'm Not America's Sweetheart. And it's all just, I'm a whatever you want to call it. I'm a rough and tumble. I'm an awesome. I'm here to be able to do business, And she's always like, I like the chip I got in my front tattoo, my front teeth, and I got back tattoos you won't believe. And, and I only have one, but it's just one of those things where I just love the honesty and just being a really, really real woman who's here to be able to be real and not be the 50s version of what a woman should be, but just come on in and be real and be able to get to business. So those are my two big ones I'd probably throw out there.
That is so awesome. And I just want to say thank you for doing your podcast. I think I've shared with you, like I've shared it with some of my team, and my favorite episode to date. Well, there's two. There's really three. You did the one with your husband, and like, I listen to that while walking, and like normally I'm like, okay, I'm done exercising, I'm out. Like it doesn't matter what doing. It's like, oh, we hit the time, I'm done. And I was like, I just kept going, and I was like, oh my God, that was so. For those of you guys who don't know, you got to check out her podcast. She talks super openly and honestly about your personal life. And then the other one, because I don't have kids, but I employ like 900 working mothers, and everybody I know has 4 children, so they've repopulated the world for me.
Seriously,
But you had one about how being a working mom and how you had like boundaries with work and kids, and you tell your kids, squeeze your hand twice if it's really important. I was like, and then when work was over, you're super present for them. And I just thought that was really great. So I really appreciate all the things that you're doing for the industry, and I like to say women power this industry for the most part. The bulk of employees are women. And so I'm just excited that there's bigger voice for them.
Well, thank you. I hope we're making a good difference out there. I get a lot of really good feedback from it, and from all sorts of people, from, people that are getting licensed and people that are getting into the industry. And one of the things actually we're going to be recording this week is my daughter, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, has officially joined the agency. She got licensed in February. We're going to be putting her through some great training programs. And I'm really excited because we're actually going to do a multiple stage podcast with her. We're probably going to put them out at different stages too. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that through, where we're going to see how, we're going to do an interview. How are you as you get started? What are your fears, as a brand new woman to the insurance space? And you really, she grew up in it, but yet at the same point, she didn't. Like, it was always one of those things that kids don't really want to listen to the things that you're talking about when you're in the car that way. And she knows enough, but she doesn't really. So it's going to be a really good conversation, I think, from somebody coming, especially a woman coming into the industry in this day and age for all the things that the industry has to offer, but yet at the same point, so raw, and the hopes and the dreams and the fears and then we're going to do it like halfway in, like 6 months in. Then we're going to do like after the first year. And so ideally we're going to kind of chronicle her process. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun, exciting information too, especially for those that are coming into the industry and those of us that are mentoring the next generation in insurance.
Well, and that's so cool, because then there's also the mother-daughter dynamic too of all that.
Yes.
So yeah, that'll be a page turner. I will definitely be watching that. You might even get me to work out a little longer.
There you go. I like it. Yeah. Very little gets me to work out any longer, but I'm appreciative that
I could use it these days. I could use it these days. But I want to hear from you. So obviously you've got your podcast, you've got the agency. I know you've got this great story, working with your dad. And so I just want you to tell the listeners a little bit about, how did you get into this crazy industry?
So I got into it kind of sort of how other people do, but very differently, all in the same conversation. So I got into it because my dad was an Allstate agent in Texas. 20 years ago, we had the black mold crisis, which a lot of companies just stopped writing business and personal lines and homeowners insurance. My dad was with Allstate. He had a non-compete. I was a stay-at-home mom at that point, and I had an elementary education degree. Always thought I would go back to teaching. I never, ever thought I would do anything different. And my dad came to me. Well, part of the story, too, is that my mom passed away when I was 22. And when she was diagnosed with cancer, actually, she was diagnosed with mesothelioma, which is cancer due to asbestos poisoning. She knew she wasn't going to live. And she said, take care of him. And I said, okay. And that's a really big thing to put on a 22-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
So here I am, a stay-at-home mom. My dad comes to me and he's like, hey, I want to go independent, but I got a non-compete, so I can't put it in my name. And I don't really know that I'm really ready to walk away. And I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with me? He goes, I just want you to sign on the dotted line. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal, really. Just sign right here. It's okay. It's okay. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I had no license. I had never worked in an insurance agency. I had no idea. He even handled all of our insurance. So I didn't know, besides just updating my credit card or whatever, even what we were doing. So I went ahead and went independent for him. He was like, you can do it during mom's day out hours. Don't worry about it. My youngest was 3, who's my daughter, who's now entering the industry, which is awesome. And that just gives me goosebumps. But he went ahead and said, just do it during mom's day out hours. 10 to 2, not a big deal. And I'm going, okay, I'll do whatever you tell me to. In my mind, I was setting this up for him to come and be that person, right?
You were like in name only. You were just a signer.
I was just a signer.
Answer some phones.
I'll just, it's okay. I'll just show up occasionally, eat donuts while I'm sitting at my desk. It's not a big deal, right? And little by little, I was able to build a little bit of the agency during mom's day out hours. And it was just really, really interesting, because then he came to join me about 2 years later, which is funny because I really thought it was going to be much faster than that. And then 6 months in, he even said, why don't you go ahead and open up another business? Because there's not a great CRM system in the industry that really helps to be able to take care of online leads. Because back then, online leads were hot.
Yeah.
So I actually had 2 businesses going. And so I developed a team of developers to be able to do that as well. So I'm doing both directions, stay-at-home mom-ish, not really. And I just got in this phase where he didn't really want to know anything about the CRM system, the technology. I was trying to be able to run an agency. The CRM took off to such a level that he gave up his Allstate agency and came on over to run the independent agency. That was great. We did that until 2015. And then he actually owned the CRM system. And so we made some choices, and he went ahead and sold off part of that business. And so I ended up refocusing in 2015 back into the agency, and he had kind of kept it where it was. He still only learned how to quote 2 different companies out of all the companies that we had. And email was still very difficult in technology. And that was okay, because that was where we were. But when I came back in to the business, I just said, hey, I want to run this as a business. I don't want to be locked down to always being on the phone, to always being, kind of that person who is always working. So we kind of restructured the business at that point, and it took off, and we've done really, really well. So I'm really excited here in 2022. We've acquired another agency. We have locations in Dallas and Austin. We just actually expanded out to Colorado, and that's pretty new for us. And my daughter is joining the industry, and we've had a great run at it. We employ 7 people, and it's been a lot of fun. It's not been what I thought it was going to be. And my dad, plays golf and has a great time, and I still have to help him log into his systems, and we quote for him and make sure that we update credit card numbers. But he loves taking people out for lunch and coffee and creating relationships. So that's what we let him do now. So it's been wonderful, but it's definitely not, I think, the vision I had for myself back when I was younger.
I know, it's really funny how life kind of like guides you. Like, I don't think I ever thought I'd own an insurance consulting and training firm. Like, back to like my 18-year-old self graduating high school, I'd have been like, what? like if you fast forward, I would have been like, I thought I'd be living like in Manhattan and, and like being corporate America. And now the idea of being like with a corporate name badge makes me want to cringe. Like, oh, that sounds so horrible. Like I get itchy. Yeah. So
I have 2 major questions I love to ask people when I meet them. And one of them is one I can actually repeat here. And I love to be able to, I'll tell you the other one some other time. But my favorite one is, what did you get a degree in, or what did you do in school or think that you were going to do? And maybe you prepared yourself for, and what do you do today? Yeah. They are never along the same lines of each other. Never, ever, ever. And I love opening up that conversation of how did you get where you are? Because that conversation is so, it's such a living, I always say a business is a living, breathing organism, but we forget that our life is too. Yeah. That we go in different directions based on the breadth of where we go and the choices that we make. And a lot of times it's so much, I'm going to say 99% of the time, it's always in our best interest. And sometimes even when challenging situations happen, we have to keep that focus that we're really moving forward, and that living, breathing entity, which is our life, is what's really propelling us in the direction that we need to go. And even when things get hard, we have to remember that.
That's such a true statement, because I'm sure, you and I were just at Cass's event in Kansas City, and, there's some agencies dealing with some really difficult things right now, whether it be turnover of staff, or the carriers are tightening, or depending on their business model, the cost to acquire leads is going way up, and, it's impacting. There's so many things going on. And like, I think you and I are similar in that respect. Like, I always ask, what is this trying to teach me? Like, I'm okay. This is hard. Some kind of lesson's going to come out of this, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm going to let it just teach me, and I'm not going to overthink the rest of it or stress out about it. And, there's so few things in life you can actually control, that sometimes you just have to let it happen and say, maybe this thing just kicked me to the ground because, in 3 months, there's a reason for it. It's crazy.
Totally. And one of the things, I love John DeMartini, and I talk about him on my podcast all the time, but one of the things he says is to look at your life in retrospect and pick a really difficult situation and come up with like 200 reasons, or like 100 to 200 reasons why that event benefited you. And even when it didn't seem like it would be. And even if we go down to the smallest minuscule thing, we can see how it focused our lives going forward, or our career, or whatever it is. And then we can find gratitude for that event, even as difficult as it is. And, I could say that my mom's passing, as difficult as it was, it gave my dad and I a better relationship. And then on the other side of that, it gave me the sense of responsibility towards being able to take this business, move it forward. And now the fact that it's given my dad that stability, it's given me the stability, even through my personal challenges, which I was very honest about on my podcast that you mentioned earlier. And my divorce and my remarriage to the same man. I'll just go there. And then it's a tickler for the audience. But
now everyone's leaving this podcast and going like, "Woo, let's go over here."
I know people are like,
lives. What do we got?
Right. But then now to be able to think about it
too, so you get to hear his side.
True, he's on there too, so he totally get his side. I was not going to bring that up without doing both sides of that story completely. Not fair for him if I didn't let him have his voice. But then now to think about it as propelling our third generation forward with my daughter, I'm still seeing things that are just that just shapes my life in so many different ways. And that's only one aspect of that. And if we can look at gratitude and the breadth of the growth aspect. I think a lot of us just get our mind better around how to be able to really manage businesses and be that ridiculously amazing insurance agent.
That's a powerful, powerful statement. And I think for when I watch agencies, as they bring that third, second, whatever generation, sometimes even fourth generation in, like the purpose of the business changes. It becomes a little bit more about legacy than just kind of running a business. It's now this living, breathing entity that is you're working on together, and you're thinking, hey, if she has kids, like this could be the thing that propels your family's, basically freedom and financial stability for a long, long time too. So it's kind of a proud mom moment, I would imagine.
It is. In fact, I actually texted a couple of weeks ago, right after she got licensed and passed all of her tests, I actually texted my ex-husband and I was like, can I share something with you? Because he was with me during the formation of the business. Yeah. And he was with me during that time when my dad came to me and said, hey, sign on the dotted line. And I went back to him. I said, look what we did. Look what we sat up at night and tried to do and talked about and had multiple family dinners about and all of that. And I really appreciate the journey that we've all been on to be able to get there, and the journey we're still going to have, because there's obviously so much more to be able to achieve. That's super, super awesome. And I'm grateful that you shared that with everybody, because I love people that are passionate, and you're one of those people that it oozes out of Teresa Kitchens, just in case you haven't noticed. Like, you can go near her and you feel it. It's like a warmth. She's like stunned. So, well, and I was grateful because it was, I don't know, maybe a year ago, something along those lines. With COVID, I don't know time anymore. So it's like it might have been before COVID, might have been during. It's like some innocuous time frame, because COVID took a lot of time from all of us in weird ways. Yep. But you reached out and you were like, hey, I think I want to do renewal calls. And I don't even know really how you decided that you were going to decide. You're like, whether it was like a business need or you heard about it somewhere, you're like, we need to do those renewal calls. I think you reached out to me on like Facebook Messenger or something. And I was like, I think I did. Well, I love Facebook Messenger. You can get a whole lots of people by Facebook Messenger. I just love it.
And like all hours of the night too. Like sometimes I'm like, wake up, I'm like, why is there 34 messages in Facebook Messenger? It's like,
right? I'm like,
three people were talking. I was sleeping. Yeah. And you were like, I want to do renewal review calls. And I was like, okay, well, I can help you with that. And she's like, okay, good. And then I think you bought the course, and it was just like, we're doing renewal review calls. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how did you decide, and I know at BrainShare, I wasn't able to be in some of the room because I was on calls, but I know a lot of people talked about the renewal review calls, and there's a lot of people in this insurance industry say it's impossible to call your book of business. Like, it's kicking poking the sleeping bear, and it's horrible. I know I feel differently, but I'm just kind of curious how it all came about that you're like, I need to do renewal review calls.
So, I'm in Texas. So You're in Texas, of course, we have huge rate increases consistently, unfortunately, over the course of the last few years. We started getting these rate increases. I mean, we've had them for a while now. I can't remember how long, but we used to say, it's just because of the storms in 2016. It'll all stop once all the storms stop.
And then you guys froze.
And then we froze, and then we've had hurricanes, and then, the dam broke down in Houston and it flooded, and, it just never ends. But, the key has been that we really got to a point where we really looked at our retention, and we just said, hey, I always say we have 20% of people that'll never leave, 20% of people that are always constantly shopping. Boom, 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 boom. Right. $10, they're shopping. Yeah. Right. But we have a strong.
It goes down their shopping. They're like, it only went down.
Seriously. They're going by the whole, it's a good thing to shop every single year, right? There's just certain people that are going to have that mentality. But then we have a strong 60% that are going to stick with you at least 3 to 8 years-ish in there without shopping. They just love you. They're going to give you that first right, I hate to say first right of refusal, but that first look, right? They love you. They want to be here. They're the ones that call in, their name, they know your name, and I really wanted to focus on that 80%, the 20% that are never going to leave because they just love you and they're happy. And then the 60%, and I mean, I accept the fact that every year there's just going to be this 20% of just people. We're going to keep the vast majority of them, but yet I wanted to really focus on the book and relationship. because I do believe the way the industry is going, we have to be able to be different from the online markets that don't offer any relationship. But yet at the same point, we need to be available, convenient. We need to be fun. We need to be approachable. And all that's relationship. So we have to have systems in place where my clients get the same experience no matter who they work with. They need to feel strong and comfortable, protected. And they're not going to do that if they don't know us, if they don't have a relationship, and if we're not proactively reaching out. Technology is definitely a part of that. We're trying to make sure that we really broach the conversation of the balance there between technology and convenience, as well as the personal relationship. But we're not going to be able to do that if we don't pick up the phone and call, or if we don't at least try, right? I mean, there has to be at least the effort. And then too, you get the benefit of the doubt. If the rates do go up, you get to remind them that you're independent, that you don't just work for, Travelers or State Auto. You're not a one-horse pony, right?
And they don't know.
Get that option. And they don't know. It's not their job to know my business. It's my job to be in front of them. And I think it was on a podcast, or I heard you somewhere say, people are getting their insurance renewal on a Friday afternoon, right? They go out for dinner with their spouse. Their spouse says, "Oh my gosh, did you see the mail?" They're going to start beep, 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 beeping, right? And they go home, they get in their jammies, and they get on the internet, and they start shopping for insurance. We want to be able to combat that. And that really stuck me as the fact that we have a responsibility to reach out and be proactive. So we decided to do the program. Everybody raves about it. And, I just decided to jump in and do it. When I make a decision, I kind of take a little while to make a decision. But when I do, like, the whole team just goes, they just hang their head and they're like, all right, tell us what to do.
Can Teresa not go to any conventions because she comes back with these ideas?
And I even have like a list of future ideas. I'm like, when we get this done, then this is going to pave the way for the next one. And my team's like, stop.
Well, it's like the account manager brain loves the routine of everything, because they want to please, and they want to do perfect work. And so then it was like, when you change it, it's like, I don't know what to do anymore. I think that's great though, because Texas has got its challenges, right? And then I think also too, a lot of people don't think about the upside, like cross-selling and coverage improvements and fixing problems in the book and cleaning up your data. And, the agents that really challenge me on this, and they're like, it's just going to lead to shopping, it's going to lead to this. I say, then you have the wrong clients. Like, if your clients are more than 20%, say they're 50% price shoppers, well, then don't do it. But own the fact that you sold on price and you want your whole agency to be about price. Like, just own it, and I think that that's an interesting scenario. So you decided to do this, and you're like, all right, everybody powwow, we're going to watch these videos and we're going to call every client. So what was your team's reaction? Because I think there's a stigma that they're going to form a union and walk out and picket.
Exactly. Well, most of my office is virtual, so I'll tell you that right now. They don't really have the option of power. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have a water cooler.
Messages start flying.
Exactly. They're going to be over there in their own little chat group. They're going to create their own little chat group separate from our work chat group, right? So they can go powwow alone. But most of our team really said that they were really on board with it, because they know that when we talk to the customers, that the clients are just really, really all about it. But they were terrified about the time commitment, because we have historically run a little bit more of a reactive insurance agency. Mm-hmm. But what I really did was I told them, I said, we are going to do everything we can to not be reactive. So how at the end of the day, when you feel really exhausted, we're going to try to stop that. We're going to try at the end of the day to make sure you feel empowered. And I can't do that if we don't create a program and a plan on how to be able to do this, because we need the relationship and we need the opportunity to be able to talk about issues right now, especially because we started this back last June. So it's been almost a year. And this past year, we've seen tons of materials going up. People want to talk about the replacement value on their home. They want to talk about rental car coverage because they know that it's horrible right now to be able to get a rental car. They want to talk about OEM products or, for vehicles, and they want to talk about all these different things. If they're in what about, I've had more people reach out about umbrellas just on their own, because we seeded the conversation early, right? That even if they said no right now, they come back in 2 or 3 months. So there's so many good points in that. And I told them, I said, stick with me. have faith, because what we're going to do is we're going to make your life easier, but it's going to go to hell in a handbasket for about 3 months. And they were like, okay. And I think my biggest challenge has been holding them accountable for their vision that it's only going to be a few months, right? Not letting them get lost in the weeds. But that's been very big for us. And I will tell you in a very honest way, because I'm just me, this is who I am, is that in June, we started this process, but then in September, my son passed away. And so I will say that put like a really big slowdown on that process, because now all of a sudden they're doing my work and they're doing their work, and I'm not looking over their shoulder to make sure they're doing all those policy reviews. And I was out for I was around for what I would call emergency things, but I did not work pretty much for a month and a half. So, because it takes at least 2 weeks whenever somebody passes to be able to get through all the stuff. And I'm the only parent that lives here, so I had to be able to kind of wrap up some of his personal effects, and I'm still doing that. But they've been super good about being really accountable to the process. At first they were kind of like, oh, Teresa's not here, we don't have to do it. But then they kind of came back and they were like, no, they really saw the benefit from it even then. So then whenever I kind of like re-engaged October-ish, November-ish, they were really doing it probably still about half to 3/4 time. And so it was just whenever it got really difficult that they let certain things fall through the cracks. So then we just kind of rededicated, re-engaged, but they had already seen some of the benefits from it. And the fact that some people were like, no, even though it went up, $150, I want to stick with you guys. You guys really reached out, took care of me, right? Yeah. And they saw that and they heard that on their own.
Right.
And that meant something to them.
Yeah. That's an amazing story of like everything that you went through. And, we've had some similar experiences with other agencies, and the staff wants to make sure you're okay. It's like a traumatic experience, because, agencies kind of run like families. The fact that they were still doing it, one is amazing. The fact that you only took like 6 weeks off is like super crazy amazing. So again, kudos to you, like my hero of insurance. And, I think too, with the renewal calls, you hit on something really important that, you have to believe for them for a little while, right? Like, because they're going to think about, it's going to lead to more remarkets. Like in their head comes like the worst of everything that's going to happen by calling customers. What ends up happening is they gain some more confidence. Like, I don't know if you saw your team gain, like they're more confident talking about that umbrella versus they might not have asked anybody in 2 months for an umbrella policy. Now they're asking routinely. And they also get better at talking about rates. So, we like to say, you didn't pick the rate, your staff didn't pick the rate. It's either something the client did or the carrier needed to make more money to be solvent. So
completely,
we have to, in this industry, not be shy about rate and then be more comfortable talking about it. And I'm so glad that your team stuck with it to get there.
And we've really taken it from a perspective of, I think I read somewhere that there were like, and I read somewhere there was like $21 billion in claims last year. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we try to frame it that way as well. So if somebody goes, well, why are rates always going up? We said, well, you know what? On average, there are approximately $21 billion worth of claims every year, not to mention the wildfires, the fact that entire neighborhoods are, and we'll take whatever the latest disaster in the United States.
There's always one going on.
Right. There's always like, pick a new one, right? There's, wildfires in Colorado. There's wildfires in California. There's, tornadoes and hurricanes and whatever, right? And we usually say this one thing, and sometimes I'll do like the research on one specific event, right? This one specific event cost insurance companies this much money, not to mention the fact that people know that people are still rebuilding from Katrina and other things. And sometimes we just don't realize the amount of time that it takes, the amount of resources. And then we'll even say, on top of that, they got the people that have to be able to mitigate these claims. They got all the billing, they got all the claims adjusters, they have all the people that do all the regular service and the mailing, and stamps have gone up, and it's just gotten crazy. So unfortunately, they have to be able to increase their prices. And, we don't like it. But, at the same point, we want to make sure you're taken care of, because we don't want you to be in that $21 billion and not have the coverage that you need. And usually if we say something like that, people are like, oh, okay.
Right. Like makes sense, because all the advertising these say is you should be spending less on your insurance. So they get a little brainwashed, right? And they just need the sense of reality. Or I used this the other day. I was speaking in New Jersey, and it's like, well, the rates are going up. The rates are going up. Everybody just wants to be shopped. I'm like, then why is there a line wrapped around Starbucks? Like, no one has stopped drinking $8 cups of coffee, and Starbucks has raised their rates, and no one's sitting there and being like, Starbucks, why did you raise your rates? No, they still do that. I was like, people have income. They have to choose where it goes. And unfortunately, insurance is not the thing that they like to choose to do.
Well, because they don't see the benefit. And we need to make sure that we're really, really honest with ourselves, that we sell into a market where people don't see the benefit very often. And what they do, it's every 5 to 8 years, right? With a roof or whatever. And they think they're owed it, even though they pay $2,000 a year for homeowners insurance, which is high for most of the country, right? But in Texas, people get, and I tell people all this time, people get a new roof in Texas every 8 to 10 years. If you're paying $2,000 for 10 years and you're paying $20,000 for that roof, your roof is $38,000. Did you come out on top? You did. So therefore, the point is, let's do that with, all of a sudden we got roofers knocking on doors, and we have, people like, calling roofers, come look at my roof, right? And people have other things that happen to their homes, like water claims and ice, pipes that burst. And I said, if we think about it, most people are going to have a $20,000 to $30,000 claim on their roof at least every 10 years or so, depending on the area. We're in North Dallas, so, we're Texas, we're going to have more. But, the reality is if we do the numbers, it doesn't match. Right.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that that's why having a relationship with an agent is so important. Mm-hmm. And you hit the nail on the head, like relationships. When I think about relationship, like, I think like, hey, they know my dog's name. I know their dog's name. I know their kids. Like, there's something about that. And I don't know when in insurance we stopped being like the attorney and the accountant. We started being the insurance agent. Like, we're as untrustworthy as anybody else. And we have to gain that trust back. And I think agents have to realize that, like, we're not victims of this. Like, there are strategies and tools where you can take better control of your relationships. And by the way, if you have a book full of, crappy clients, now is the time to release them to your competition.
Yep.
Let them go find another home. And so you can stay focused on the good ones. Your team stress level goes down, your profits go up. But it's so scary. Like, if we lose one, they're going to leave us a bad Yelp review. I'm like, they might stay and leave us a bad Yelp review.
True. But you know what? If we can build that relationship, maybe they'll go back and they'll fix their Yelp review, right? How many times do we see people that leave a bad Yelp review and then they go back and go, oh, well, such and such took care of it because they responded and now they took care of it and I won't leave ever. Yeah. I've had clients that have left. They've had a bad experience with another insurance agency and they come back and they go, but you took care of us. I'm willing to be able to have this conversation every year. And I think when people feel protected, they just don't. And I tell my clients, I tell my team, I tell my kids, I tell everybody, we need to ask for what we want. I can't change the premium necessarily. We can talk about if you want to add or subtract or what we're going to do here with different deductibles. We can talk about all that. But what I can do is I can say, if you ask for what you need in service, we're going to give you what we need, what we think you need, but talk to us, communicate with us, because we're here to be your partner in your financial health, because we're here to be able to protect you. And I think when we say that to people, it's a vulnerability and an honesty that they don't get from other people. And I also tell my team to not be a call center. I hate whenever people call and they're like, Sterling Insurance Group, how can I help you? That doesn't emanate love and the ability to be able to protect and take care of people.
It's like, right? I don't even really want to help you. You're kind of an inconvenience. Why did you call today?
Completely. Our clients are never an inconvenience. One of my pet peeves in life, and I said this from the innovation stage, is no problem. If people say, like, if somebody says, hey, can you go ahead and change out that car? No problem. Stop. We don't do that.
My pleasure. Do the Chick-fil-A.
Exactly. My clients are not a problem. We need to build that relationship through every pore of what it is that we put out into that business. When you say, absolutely, my pleasure, I will get that done for you. Do you need that done like immediately? I do have about 3 other things in line. Would you mind if I got it taken care of around by the end of business today? you know what? People are good.
Yeah.
Create expectations, set expectations, get it done, take care of them, communicate. And in return, we're building trust. And by us reaching out to them, we're following through with what we say we're going to do by being their advocate. And I just think that's why this program is so important.
I agree. And I also think too, one thing that we're seeing a lot in agencies, and you might not have to deal with this because you have such a great group and you're such a good leader. A lot of agencies, staff is really burned out, right? Like burned out by the carriers and the delays with some of the carriers and the rates going up, and the world is in a weird place, and gas is more expensive, and they're trying to fix their budget, and they're figuring out what to do with their kids for summer, and it's like all day long everyone's just running an obstacle course, and we go to sleep for 8 hours and we pop up and start running again. And the thing that I think is so interesting when you start making renewal calls is you talk to these other clients that you forgot existed, right? So there's those 20%, like those frequent flyers. What's my payment? Can you reinstate me? They're very active. And
those are your reactive people, right? If you run your agency in a reactive way, we're going to be dealing with those people that complain and gripe a little bit more frequently, because they're the ones that are going to be constantly in our face a little bit more. Whereas if we're reaching out, we're connecting with those people that are happy.
Yeah.
I need people that are happy in my life.
And then it's like, hey, we sold this client 10 years ago. We haven't talked to them.
Totally.
And you're like, I don't even know that they exist. Or my favorite is everyone's like, the rates are going up. Well, until you get 3 renewal calls where you're telling people the rates went down, like you get the stuff that's the most chaos. When you call them, it's like, oh, this person's rate went down. What a great call to make today. Best call of my day. Telling Teresa, her rates went down. Game on.
But one of the things we also need to take into consideration is that I have a lot of calls that the rate went up 20%, right? And I call them or my team calls them, and I'm specifically helping out with down in my Austin agency right now. We're having a little bit of team turnover down there. And I specifically made a call. And I really didn't want to, because in my mind, that gremlin is just the back of your head all the time. As much as we want to say it goes away. Yeah, their little rate gremlin. It doesn't always go away, right? And this is a book that I purchased, so I don't know everybody down there the way I know everybody up in the Dallas book. But I called and I'm like, hey, da-da-da-da. And she's like, oh my gosh, you guys are the most amazing. I'm so grateful. You guys are just awesome. She goes, but remember, we're with this carrier because they have this one coverage that these other carriers don't have. So even if you want to be able to take a look at all my stuff, make sure I get this one coverage. And I go, well, these other companies don't have that coverage, and they still don't. It's actually something that just came out a couple of years ago, and the other companies haven't picked it up yet. She goes, well, no problem. We're done then. Yeah. And I was like, okay. Sometimes people are in a certain place because things that we don't even think about, right? And somebody once told me, actually my landlord here at my office, I'm in my office today. We're mainly virtual, but I have this great landlord that I love. She said, sometimes she looks at me and goes, stop thinking for other people. And I'm always like, oh, okay. Because she does the wag finger thing when she does it. I'm sitting here doing it on video. She does a little wag finger thing. And she says, don't think for other people. And I'm like, I've really thought about that over the course. I've been renting here for about 5 years. And I'm like, what does that mean for me? And I'm like, I'm thinking for other people whenever I see that rate increase, and I'm making the decision for them that they're going to be cranky. I'm going to approach them that they're going to be cranky. And that's something that I don't need to do. I don't need to put that out into a tone on the phone or an emanation of being afraid. Hi, this is Teresa.
I'm really sorry your rate went up.
Please don't yell at me. We need to be able to be the professional, and we don't need to think for other people. And we need to celebrate the fact that they're getting great coverage, and the fact that we're rock stars in our industry, and that we're professionals. And
you might be worth paying more for, right?
I am worth it.
Line wrapped around there. There's a reason I pay more for Starbucks, because I feel like it's better coffee, get a better experience. It's not dirty inside. Like, I know what to expect. So I'm willing to wait in line longer and pay more for a cup of coffee that you can literally get a cup of coffee anywhere, right? True. And I don't know why we think in this industry that we're not worth more.
Right. Well, even, there's a great, the book, The Nordstrom Way, right? people go and they will spend more money on clothes. They will spend more money to be able to get the service and the quality that they deserve.
Yeah.
And that's the type of client we want to be able to attract. And if we can't be that, then how are we going to attract it? And it doesn't mean that other people are bad. I really love people to get away from the idea of good and bad. I don't like the idea of good and bad in the world. I always say that, like, for my dating life back forever ago, I always say, you're an amazing person. You're just not my amazing person. So you would be really, really a great client for another insurance agency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make room for that awesome and amazing client that I want to be able to have, because I need to be able to release you to go somewhere else out into the big world and find the insurance agent that's going to let you get what you want and empower you to get what you want. And there's lots of other insurance agents out there that will do things like that.
Yeah, I love that. You don't like, no problem. My pet peeve is when people, I'm sorry your rate went up. I'm sorry this happened. I'm like, you only apologize when I have literally made a mistake, an error. I've done something wrong to you. You don't apologize for rate. You did not pick their rate. You know, the carrier did, or the activity that they did. They should be apologizing because they got into a car accident and had to use their insurance, you know, like, that's a little much, but you know what I mean? Like, when we start going, I'm sorry, like, what are you sorry for? Like, you're making it seem like they were wrong. Then there's a saying I like, you want to be empathetic, not sympathetic. And sympathetic says, I'm sorry that this very wrong thing happened to you. It shouldn't have happened to you. Empathetic is, I understand this is frustrating. Let's get your game plan together, right? And
but aren't we so lucky that we get the opportunity to take care of them in those moments when things aren't going right in their life, and we can love them through that space?
Yeah,
you know, at that point, it's not about, you know, price, and then all of a sudden they can look at us and then they love us, and it's not about price, right? When I can have these conversations with them about coverage, and then whenever they do have something happen, they know they're covered. I mean, I'm going to throw this out there real fast. I know that we need to kind of move on in different topics, but I had a house fire back when I was pregnant with my daughter 23 years ago. August, it'll be 24 years. Had a house fire. My car's exploded in the garage, all this stuff. The tree between the two houses caught on fire, melted the house next to me, all this. It was very large. Anyway, I always say that when you're in your skivvies at 2:00 in the morning, watching your house burn across the street is not the time to wonder if you have insurance coverage. And that is something I will make sure that none of my clients have to worry about. And it's only through relationship that we can prevent that.
It's so funny you say that, because, you know, I travel all the time. So I lead a non-traditional life. And so I'm always thinking, like, if an airplane goes down, or like the worst thing happens, you know, like I am mugged and kidnapped and taken to someone's basement, you know, like, and no one knows for 2 days. I'm like, if something happens to me, I know that, like, you know, we have more than enough insurance. My husband doesn't have to scramble and go back to work the next day. Like, I'm like, that would keep me alive in someone's basement. You know, like, at least
I wouldn't give up.
Yeah, I will not give up. He will not have to use the life insurance policy. But so, you know, I'm grateful that you were coming on. So I just want to wrap up and just say, what's your biggest advice? So you did it all through the virtual school. You kind of did it on your own. Of course, we tell everybody, you know, reach out. I think you did a couple times. But like, what's your biggest advice for a couple things? One, somebody that thinks they want to do it, but they're not sure. Somebody that is going to do it. And like, you've been through the battle scars, right? And what's your biggest advice for the other account managers out there doing it that maybe don't have the same leadership like you might be providing people?
I'd say baby steps. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. We can all sit back and say, hey, this is supposed to be done in a 4 to 6 month process. And I agree with that. But at the same point, it doesn't mean that we have to, you know what I mean? I mean, don't put our back up against the wall and say that we're not going to be better tomorrow because we're afraid that tomorrow's not going to have enough time to be better. Right. And we just need to make baby steps every day. There's a great graphic out there on the internet that is an elephant, and different people are looking at different parts of the elephant. One person's at the tail and he's like, oh, it's a rope. One person is at the belly and he's like, it's like a big concrete wall. One person's at the front. They're like, oh, look, it's a shower head. If we look at an elephant from all these different perspectives, we need to take into consideration those perspectives of our team. And then what we need to do is help them step back. see the entire elephant, because that's our job as a leader, to be able to see all the different parts of it. And then what we need to do is say, okay, we're going to take one bite at a time. We eat an elephant one bite at a time. And I know I shouldn't say that. PETA's going to come after me, but that's kind of my thought process.
A vegan elephant. We'll have like a gummy vegan elephant.
We will. We're going to have like a little like cake elephant or something. I agree. But how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But the first way to do it is to step back and recognize that it's an elephant. Call it an elephant. Name it an elephant. And then you go to work, right? And that, I think, to me, is probably my biggest piece of advice, is just take it at your own pace. Make one change at a time, but look at the entire elephant. Cast a vision so your team knows what they're working for and towards, and then they're going to be along that path with us. It's when we don't do that they get so overwhelmed by the rope or the tail that they can't see the rest of the elephant, and all of a sudden they want to quit.
I agree. And I think too, I'll just couple that in one last question for you, because you brought up something I wanted to chat about, which is, you said, hey, the team kind of was making 50 to 75% of the calls. I see a lot of agency owners that are a little scared of accountability, right? Like, if I hold them accountable, they might walk. If I hold them accountable, like, I've told them to do it, I'm going to make it a recommendation and we're going to see how it goes. And then they get frustrated. They're like, my team's just not doing it. And there's this like real awkward breakdown of accountability, right? And it seems to me like, obviously, you were kind of on it, had a huge trauma in your life, and then came back. And so how do you approach that accountability in agencies? Because I'm sure our listeners would love to know.
So I moved to a system called Monday.com, and Monday.com has a great ability for you to be able to see different colors of things, and you get the opportunity to be able to record it. So we took your script, and I think that was one of the biggest things about the program that took a lot of load off of people, is that they didn't have to wonder what to say. They literally just repeat the script. And so it took so much stress away from them, because all of a sudden it wasn't this, well, what do I say? And what do I do? And how do I hold my tongue to the left and point to the right and make this magic appear, right? And it was so good on that. So then what we do is we have the script at Monday.com, and on the right-hand side, it has all these answers for the things they're supposed to be able to do, but then they can add in the data in there. So what we do is we pull up every week, we pull up that Monday.com board, and we go through what calls have been made, what's been going on here. We put the pre-call sheet in a Dropbox. We put the link to the pre-call sheet in there, so that way they have it. It's already there. When they make the call, they have the pre-call sheet, the script, and then they have that all in one location. For us, that really meant that whenever we pull up the screen, they know that it's not me holding them accountable. The whole team knows if they made that phone call or not. Yeah. And if they recorded the data that's supposed to come in there. And I tell them all the time, if they say they have a business, that means I can market to them down the road. Even if we don't get the business right now, I can market to them down the road with this data. So for me, it took me out of the naggy space a little bit, and it made them accountable to the entire team. And I think that really helped us to be able to get over the fear a little bit more. And it also helped them to feel like they had everything in one place. They weren't scrambling for the pre-call sheet and then looking at the policy and then what's in the management system. And I think it took away a lot of the fear and, and the script and all that other stuff. I think it's really been, we don't have that system down as well as I want to, because now what we're doing is we're saying, okay, let's automate parts of this. So what we do is whenever we get everything in there the way we want it, at a certain point, then we'll go ahead and we'll trigger email that has a Calendly link, and then a text message that has a Calendly link. We let them schedule their own appointment first at their own convenience. And then if they don't schedule their appointment, then we make the phone call. So we give them, right now we're at 60 days. I liked how Chris Brady, so this week, said he does 90 days out, but we're at the 60-day mark. But I would like to be able to get a little bit further out, but we are trying to work on that timing of how to give them time to make their own appointment, and then when to be able to start calling. And we start, and then we also prioritize everything A, B, and C based on the percentage of increase. So that way we can go ahead and make sure that we hit those targets for the higher percentages. And if the C's don't get a phone call, I'm going to ask why, because it's part of their job, it's part of the expectation. But at the same point, I'm not going to freak out as much, because we still make about half of them. They still got the opportunity to be able to schedule their own appointment by text and by email. And then we always send 10 days before the renewal, hey, make sure you got all your documents. We just wanted, and we need to incorporate slide broadcast into that to be able to make a voice drop as well, to be able to schedule the appointment. So we're trying to get proactive early, and then the team kicks in, making those phone calls about 45 days out to make sure that we're following up from that. But we're adding automation, and that's taking care of about 25 to 30% of those calls, that they just automatically go online and make an appointment, and we don't have to go chase them. And I'm hoping that as they get a little bit more accustomed to that, they're going to start making those appointments more readily on their own.
Well, that's awesome. Well, unfortunately, we have to let Teresa go, and I've got to go hop on to a client call. But Teresa, if they're interested in your podcast, could you tell people where to go find your podcast? Because I think it's one of the best out there. So,
oh, thank you so much. No, we're over 2 years now. We're super excited about that. We've got lots of episodes highlighting amazing women. We are on Apple iTunes, Google. We're part of the Agency Intelligence Network. So anywhere that you find them, you can find us. I actually am on Instagram, Power Women in Insurance. We have a Facebook group, Power Women in Insurance. And if people know amazing women that are out there doing amazing things, whether they think they're amazing or not, if you think they're amazing, let me know. Hit me up on Facebook, hit me up on Instagram, email, whatever, website. I don't really care. Just Google me. I pop up somewhere. And
come to me. We'll get you to her. It's all good.
Go to Kelly. Kelly sends me people all the time. I go to Kelly, show me some amazing women. And that's what we're doing, is we're highlighting women that are making a difference for the future of tomorrow, whether or not that's for men, women, that's for our future in the insurance space across the board. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And we'll be signing off. Thanks, everybody.